Hey, Stroke Thrivers and Thrive family. Welcome back to the Stroke Thriver podcast. I'm Dr. Brent Calhoun, your Thrive Recovery Coach, and I'm glad that you've carved out for the next few minutes some time for us and you. Um, so I'm going to do my darndest to make it worth your while. So, before we get into today's topic, um, let me tell you why this podcast exists in the first place. Um, because it's not just three or four or five reasons off the top of my head, it's the whole reason I show up every week. First, when I had the strokes over 16 years ago, there was no guide for any of this, and I built the one I wished that someone had handed me. So, second, uh, stroke thrivers deserve to hear from someone, me, who's lived through it, not someone who just only read it in a journal article. And third, this community pushes me to keep growing in my own recovery and your recovery just as much as I'm hoping I help you. So, if you want something in your hands I have written two books so far, more to come. The first I published in November 2024. Seems long ago, but I wrote the Stroke Survivors First Aid Kit, and that was the guide while I went through my journey, and I helped others. That's what I want to help you, and I hope it will motivate you. And or if you're if you're a loved one or a caregiver, give it to the person. And the second thing I wrote, um, the first book, the first of the word search book I've written, Word Search for Stroke Recovery Book, Volume 1. It's the easiest, but Volume 2 and Volume 3 will come in down the pike. But when I was soon after when I was in recovery from these two strokes, the first one took out my speech center, and that why I needed to use word searches to retrain my brain how to recognize patterns, which I used to do it almost seamlessly. So hopefully, if you or your loved one will benefit from this, check it out. And you can get to them by going open your browser and typing in tinyurl.com/stroke hyphen books. And as I write more, they'll be on that one too. And about it's almost 4 years now, I just realized this label that I'm using for myself and others didn't seem right. The stroke survivors, that's what I thought. But so I finally commissioned people to design works that highlight the stroke thriver. So here's one, Stroke Thriver, mode activated. And I think I have 12 or 13 designs to date and more for coming. But check them out. You can open your browser and type tinyurl.com/stroke hyphen designs. Check them out. If you're tuning in for the first time, or you're finding, wow, maybe I can use this stuff, I've got a whole library of content waiting for you on YouTube. I got my channel, which is at Stroke Thrivers. That's V as in victory, O-R, and S, of course. And subscribe, and I do at least once a week, sometimes more. Check them out. All right. The last time I left you sitting with the idea that patience isn't something you're handed at birth, it is something you've learned and bears repeating. Lasting, real change happens over your words, your body and your brain, and your actions all lined up, not once, not twice, over and over and over again. That's a repetition is where the rewiring actually happens. So keep that in your back pocket because it connects directly to what we're covering today. This episode today helps everybody. Habit stacking. What is it? Habit stacking is a behavioral design concept popularized by researchers and authors studying how habits actually form. So the short version is pair a new behavior with an existing, well-established one, using the old habit as the trigger for the new one. So this formula is simple. After whatever your habit is, I will your new habit. So why does this matter, especially after a stroke? Well, it makes you realize this can really help us because habit formation relies upon the cue, routine, trigger, rewards loops, and those loops live in neural pathways. But after a stroke, some of those pathways are disrupted, which means that the brain has to work harder to encode or learn something new. Trying to build a brand new habit in isolation with no existing cues to anchor to it, ask an already taxed system to do more work than it needs to do. So stacking a new habit onto an established one borrows a cue your brain already possessed automatically, which lowers the cognitive load required to remember and execute the new behavior. It's huge. When you, if you like this one, get a copy of the download it and listen to them again. So this really is a conversation about willpower and why it's the wrong tool for this job. Willpower is a limited resource, and after a stroke or strokes, it's not too it's almost non-existent. It runs highest in the morning, and most people, and it depletes throughout the day as you make decisions, manage distress, and navigate fatigue. So if you're relying on willpower alone to remember this new habit, you're competing against everything else your brain is already working through the day. So including the extra effort required for basic tasks after a stroke. So habit stacking sidesteps this problem. It doesn't entirely. Because the habit is triggered by something automatic, it doesn't require a new decision, a fresh decision, or a burst of motivation every time. It just requires the anchor habit to happen, which it already does reliably every day. So practically, looks like, for example, after I take my morning medication, I will do 5 minutes of gait practice. Or after I sit down for breakfast, I will complete one page of word search, or maybe a reading practice. And last, after I brush my teeth at night, I will write down one thing I'm grateful for. So the key is specificity. Vague intentions like I'll exercise more doesn't have a cue attached, so they're easy to skip. A stacked habit has a built-in trigger which removes the decision-making step entirely. You're not deciding whether to do it. You're just continuing a sequence that's already in motion. Huge. So one thing worth naming directly, stacking works best when a new habit is small relative to the anchor. So start small. If the new habit takes significant more time or effort than the habit it's attached to, the stack tends to break down because your brain doesn't yet associate the two as one sequence, one continuous sequence. Start smaller than feels necessary. So you always can extend a habit that's already sticking. It's much harder to maintain one that felt overwhelming from day one. So hear that one or see that, but start small. So it's also worth addressing what happens when a habit stack breaks. Missing a day doesn't mean starting over. It means the anchor habit happens again tomorrow, and the new habit gets another chance to attach to it. So do it again. Research on habit formation generally shows that occasional misses doesn't meaningfully disrupt long-term habit formation as long as the pattern resumes. So get back on the horse, so to speak, tomorrow. So the goal isn't a perfect streak. The goal is a strong, repeatable association between the anchor and a new behavior. So for care partners, this is a useful framework to support without hovering, helping identify existing daily routines and finding the natural seam for a new habit. It's more effective and less distressing than reminders that feel like nagging. So a care partner can also help notice when a stacked habit has quietly become automatic, which is usually the sign that it's time to consider stacking a second habit onto it, building a chain one link at a time. Small, stacked, repeated. That's the mechanism. So please try it, do it, and let me know. You can let me know in the chats or comments in the YouTube or on Facebook Live. But if this episode gave you something useful, head over to YouTube and subscribe to @Thrivers. It's the best way to catch every new episode and everything else we're building over there. And gratitude and grit, remember, that's V as in victory, O-R.